We have LeRoy Deichman here, and LeRoy, you have a very special relationship with Dr. Albrecht. You had him for class
Yes, I sure did.
in the 1950s?
Yeah, yeah. It was a few years ago.
It was a few years ago, yes.
Yeah.
So how was he as a lecturer in class?
Well, he was a very good professor. He brought ideas out that we don't usually hear about. Like, he said that what we do with the soil, you know, we had a lot of soil students in there. He said, what we do about the soil is impacted by the humans, and we need to impact the humans and the livestock that work on that soil. So he taught us to kind of look at all the other factors, all the interacting factors. He called externalities factors and interdisciplinary, and that's what he was. He was and then of course a brilliant soil microbiologist. And I didn't understand all of his microbiological terms, his terms of those mechanisms.
So he was ahead of his
Oh yeah.
his colleagues at the time, thinking about how the soil affects animals even.
Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, he sure. Yeah, and buffaloes. And back before we were here, before him, you know, before white people were here, the buffalo, he could track the buffalo wallers all over wherever they were, the salt slicks and things like that.
Just from the soil.
Salt licks, yeah.
Sure. But after graduation, you continued with the relationship with Dr. Albrecht.
Yeah, yes I did. I never did know exactly how I got the job that I did. But anyway,
You knew somebody.
But the job I had dealt with his farm in Illinois. So I worked for 30 years after I got out of school. I worked as a consultant for 3 generations of the Knox family that farmed his farm in Illinois.
Okay.
So we did have some interaction back and forth during that period of time. Some when some people, can you imagine some people wanting to sell his tenants treff land?
Oh,
You know,
really?
that was kind of tough. A few things like that.
Because he didn't want to use that.
Well, no, he didn't. He said there were a few questions he wanted to have answered first, which is understandable. But that was a period of time, and that was right after I left. I worked directly with this farm for the first 5 years. Then I had to leave. They transferred me to another location, and the guy that took my place had the direct contact with him. And he had to contact me a bunch of times with the conversation he'd have with Albrecht. So I took care of it, back of it when I got done. So then when I had to leave the industry, I had enough of the industry. Then I was a consultant, and then I was a consultant for their farm from then on, from the next 20 years then.
So did Dr. Albrecht then have some ideas that he wanted to be done on his farm and how to manage it?
Oh, yes, yes, he did. Yes, yeah. We didn't raise continuous corn on that good land in Illinois. We raised clover.
Where everybody else was still was going continuous corn.
Yeah,
He realized the crop rotations.
Yeah. But half of his farm, on one side of the county line, his farm wasn't the best of farms, and is a great laboratory for me and him to work with his tenants on it. But the other part of the farm is some of the best Champaign County farmland there was.
Now, were you able to make that soil that was not the best better?
It was more productive for the livestock. He had to have, he had to have cattle on his farm, and it was very good for cattle.
So you mentioned cattle. You think we've gotten away from having diversity with both livestock and row crops that really complemented one another?
Absolutely. The farms that raise livestock in the cropping operation are kind of few and far between. And that's really sad, unfortunate. And Dr. Albrecht wouldn't like that very well. And but then when I was a consultant, when I went into the consulting business, I used the laboratory that Dr. Albrecht set up when I was a senior here in college. We know that he was gone quite a bit from his campus, setting up the lab in Ohio, and I used that lab in my consulting business.
Oh, so he actually set up a private lab in Ohio.
Yeah, he did. He did use the Albrecht method. And incidentally, the job I took in Illinois when I left school, that was the only soils lab I knew in Illinois that used the Missouri system. And in Illinois, that wasn't really accepted at that time.
Is that right?
At that time. But now, of course, everyone accepts it. You know?
Oh, wow. That's great.
But so I went to a real pioneering organization when I left here, and by where his farm was. And we were, you've heard about this, was it grid sampling, and what did they call
Yes.
it, this high tech? Well, in 1961, I started taking grid samples. We called it spot spreading then on his farm, on Dr. Albrecht's farm.
So he was
on a phosphate.
So he was doing grid sampling
On his farm.
in precision
Yeah.
farming.
Oh, we didn't call it grid sampling.
Right, but same thing.
Yeah.
61 years,
We
62
treated
years.
certain parts, and one part of his farm, the good part in Champaign County, that definitely needed treated different than
Well, sure.
the other. But no, we did that, and that, so, and I now understand why I was asked, Dr. Albrecht asked if I was interviewing for Bob Wyatt. And I was, and I said yes. And now I know why he asked that. I didn't know. That's all he asked, that one simple question. He didn't say anything else, but when I got over there, I saw that his farm was there. So that
sure.
was pretty neat.
And Bob White was who?
Bob Wyatt was the guy that hired. He was
he
was the first agronomist that the company I worked for hired, and he was a student of Albrecht's.
Oh, okay.
15 or 20 years ahead of me.
So there was that connection there.
Yeah.
So what do you think Bob Kramer brought up today about connecting the soil health and plants and animals and humans, which Dr. Albrecht did 80 years ago? What do you think about what he would think today, that we should just press on and
Oh, certainly we should press on. Certainly we should press on, but it's getting more and more complex. Our society, a question that Mary Kay Hendrickson asked.
Yes.
Our society, it makes that so difficult. Like we have to farm bigger now. We've got these 20-row planters or 24-row planters. We've got to farm bigger, and we don't have time for livestock. And all that. So and the kids they're all going to get jobs with industry, so we don't need to do this. So that's a terrible thing that looks to me like the culture has been removed out of agriculture somewhere between now and back then. The culture and so it's agri, like you hear, it's agribusiness. It's but I think it's a culture.
Because he showed that where you came from made a big difference on your health by using the dental records.
Yep.
So that you came from a good soil, that you had good health, and that you had poor soils, you had poor health. Now, LeRoy, I know how you and I have a relationship. We worked together on a concept that you came up with through your lifetime of observations, and that's the solar corridor cropping system. How much did Dr. Albrecht's inspiration come into play there?
That's really hard to say, but I'd say if I hadn't been in his class, it wouldn't have come up with it.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. That's hard.
To cultivate your mind to think not just abstractly, but to think
Right.
broader
Yeah.
and pull concepts in, and that's what you did with that.
I think he did like for his students to become visionaries out there and look at things beyond what we normally look at.
Even though I didn't know him personally, I can still feel his influence.
Well, you should. You're here I would think anyone here would hear.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, thanks so much, LeRoy. It's been great,
Yeah,
and we'll be out in the field this summer a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you.